Like them or not, convertibles are indeed the most desirable flavor of any particular car. Why? Well, there's the obvious, but then there's also the fact that a folding roof generally improves any particular design, which brings us to a $1 million question, or shall I say a $71,000 question. Does a folding roof improve that schnoz? The following will not come as any surprise to you. Everything underneath that folding roof is effectively the same as the M440i Coupe you and I have already driven, which means a B58 3-liter inline turbocharged 6-cylinder engine. In this application, 382 horsepower, 364 pound-feet of torque, and that can drive all 4 wheels, or it can now drive just the rear wheels, which thankfully this car does so through an 8-speed torque converter automatic. Now, what else makes the trip from the Coupe? That 48-volt mild hybrid system. What does that mean? Well, it's not exactly the same as the Mercedes EQ Boost system we talk about a lot on this show. That system has an integrated starter generator motor between the transmission and the engine. This does have an integrated starter generator motor, but this system has an accessory drive, and that's where it resides. It mainly works for stop-start functionality, as well as providing some assist from acceleration from a standing stop. Now, there are some other performance changes in the M440i versions of the convertibles, like specifically the M Sport differential we talk about in so many other BMWs. That's fitted as standard. Think of that as a very fast limited slip differential. Then there are some architecture changes that are obviously not from the Coupe, but some are pilfered from other M cars, like that shearing plate we talk about that sits underneath the subframe in the front of the car. It's an aluminum plate that provides more structure. That's one of the stiffening items to the convertible. They also add a couple of other items. There is a transmission tunnel, as well as increased stiffness in the side sills. And then they go a step further. It's not a shearing plate, but they add a structural plate to the back of the car as well. Now, what does that really translate to in terms of performance figures? Well, it's not quite as fast as the Coupe. 0 to 60 is 5 seconds, VMAX 130 miles an hour, or with some prudent time spent configuring options, 155 miles an hour. Good news, you and I are not driving a baby buggy today. Bad news, this weighs almost as much as one, 4,171 pounds, or depending on expression weights and measures, 1,892 kilograms. Now, 2 rather pertinent points of information I need to share with you. Number 1, that is 253 pounds more than if this were a 4 Series convertible with a 4-cylinder. And number 2, that is about 200 pounds more than the last M440 Coupe you and I drove, and that one was all-wheel drive. With that, Sport Plus mode. Oh, it gets 3,500 RPM. There's like 2 switches here. 2,000 RPM, there's a good amount of power. And then there's like crazy mode at about 3,500 RPM where this thing, when we drove the Coupe version, I was kind of blown away how quick that car was. This, with the extra weight, you don't really notice any difference in acceleration with that extra 200 pounds. And remember, this is a rear-wheel drive car, so we're kind of trading in traction with the convertible. You know, going back to the days of like the original BMW convertibles, they're always lovely cars, but when they weren't M cars, they weren't quick. I didn't think of them even as fast. They were just kind of sprightly. This is a fast car. This is something that, combined with that 8-speed torque converter automatic, it really works incredibly well to match the way that engine delivers power, but also to give you some control over the shifts. There's very few times that I am denied shifts. Like I'm going in here and I did get the downshift that I wanted. Most torque converter automatics wouldn't do that. I don't know if it's ZF that did that, or if it's the folks in Munich that did the programming. Whoever did it, vielen Dank. Now, truth be told, I was not really worried about the way this thing delivers power. I was much more worried about the driving dynamics. And here it's a bit of a mixed bag. That 200 pounds delta we talked about at the top of the episode, you really don't notice it in the overall acceleration of the vehicle and driving it around town. It's when you push it aggressively, you notice the 200 extra pounds, but unlike other convertibles, you notice it in a very specific place, in the ass end. I don't know if it's because I'm Greek, but it feels like there's a boat anchor back there. That's where all the 200 extra pounds are. And it's not like it makes it less fun to drive. It just makes it a bit more car to manhandle around turns like this. But then again, the kind of person that would own this, I don't think they're going to be pushing it as aggressively on roads like this. But it's nice to know that one can. Now, there are some things that go along with that. Number one, is this on par with like a C63S convertible? No, it's not that kind of flat handling. This is something that has good control over pitch, but you do feel a little movement in the ass end from side to side. Now, there is something rather important that jumps out at you here that has nothing to do with the convertible. The minute that I brought it out here, you notice the difference in the brakes. You almost feel like, oh my God, there's not enough stopping power. And yeah, it's good for sort of spirited driving, but not this aggressive. Now, putting all that aside, there is something incredibly important you and I need to cover. Remember in the M440 Coupe episode, we left in the wish list that we'd like that as two-wheel drive, meaning no torque going to the front wheels. Apparently someone was listening to that episode, and here the result is very good. The car feels, I don't want to say tossable, it feels more lively without the torque going to the front wheels. You really don't notice a difference in the steering, because in the coupe, it wasn't fighting, the front wheels weren't fighting to go, oh my God, we want to go forward, oh, we want to steer. This, it just feels more natural, but I want to put a pin in that conversation and come back to it after you and I have had the opportunity to drive it with the full-on roof to understand an apples-to-apples comparison. But overall, what I'm driving here is pretty good. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game on the Absence Game with today's contestant, something you and I do not see very often, a sparsely optioned BMW. This one, the 2021 BMW M440i rear-wheel drive convertible for a base price of $64,000. Now, we do need to add that color, which I have to say is stunning. They call it San Remo green, and it's kind of a bargain at $550. Now, I'm not mad at the Oyster Vernasca leather interior, which is fitted as standard. However, it's not the color that makes the San Remo green pop. Remember the cognac we saw in the M440i X-Drive Coupe? That would have been perfect here, or like a saddle leather interior. And then while we're on the concept of color and trim, a black top, really? That's the only thing that does not really work with this car. If it was like a saddle top, it would really make that color pop. And let's say for the sake of discussion, if someone had to have a silver or a white car, perhaps even a red top, or if someone wanted to be bold, like a dark blue metallic with a red top, or even a red car with a red top. Anyway, let's press on to the dynamic handling package. There's only one thing here, the 19-inch wheels, $1,300. And the Park Assistance Plus, $700. The executive package, this is kind of important. Heated steering wheel, heated seats, which you really need in a convertible. Then the LED headlights, and of course the head-up display for $3,700. And then something that I don't know why it's optional on a $64,000 car, especially one with roof that goes down, a neck warmer, $500. Then a Qi wireless charger, optional on a $64,000 car, $500 can fix that. The Harman Kardon sound system, which I've told you in the past, is kind of a bargain because this system really does kick. $875. That is about $2,500 cheaper than if it were the BMW system. And then the only other thing we have to add here is the destination and handling von Dingelfing Deutschland for $995 for a total retail price of $73,120. Or put another way, that's almost the same price as the coupe we drove. Okay, so let's take stock. We've covered the way this delivers power. We've covered the transmission. We've covered the driving dynamics. We even covered the troublesome brakes. I feel like we're forgetting something, and what was it? Oh, yes, it's alter ego. And here, I am of the significant belief, whether it be Porsche, Mercedes, or BMW, they all execute folding roofs, specifically canvas folding roofs, to another level. Other manufacturers really aren't close. I do believe they are the same supplier. I'd be surprised if they weren't. And if they aren't the same supplier, they're definitely sharing notes. And that kind of comes up here. You know how we look at 911 convertibles? They have a folding roof that folds in a Z pattern, and the reason why they do that is it's more compact when the roof is folded, so there's more space for packaging other stuff, specifically storage in the back of the car. Well, in the very smart decision that the folks in Munich took to switch this back to a canvas roof, which, Santa Maria, Madre de Dios, it looks so much better with this type of roof as opposed to a hardtop convertible. Here, they've taken that same Z folding paradigm and applied it to a 4-seat, I would say larger convertible. And the idea is it's 3 panels here, so it's not like bows that are underneath the canvas and between the headliner. These are harder panels, one here, one there, and one back there, and they fold upon themselves. And the biggest thing you notice is there is so much more storage in the trunk of this car. It borders on a coupe. Now, a Hinweis there, there's a bin, if you're familiar with these types of cars. One can open and close the bin to release more storage space for suitcases, that kind of stuff. Or if you're putting the top down, it takes up some of that storage. So if you were to close that bin, meaning you can't have the roof down, the storage is unbelievably good for this type of a car, and they combine that with a folding rear seat. Then there's the usual metrics. It goes down, I believe, in like 18 or 20 seconds and can do so up to about 31 miles an hour. One rather important point I wanted to hold off until we had the roof up, and that would be cowlishing. Here, there is none. It's indistinguishable between roof up or roof down, although with the roof up, there's something you do notice, and that takes us back to this being rear-wheel drive, two-wheel drive. If you push it aggressively, remember this is not an M car, if you push it aggressively, you do notice a little bit of understeer. Overall, I'd say it is indeed a pleasant place to be, even with the roof up. I'd go so far as to saying this combination of these 3 panels and the Z folding pattern makes for more headroom. Now, I'm 6 foot, so you can kind of see what I've got there, but something tells me this would be a prudent choice for NBA players. Built in, because I am going to say it, this with a folding roof makes the entire car, yes, including that schnoz, incredibly attractive. When this thing turns up on your doorstep, you stop, you look at it and say, wow, that is a really good looking car. So much so, I absolutely believe the design folk within BMW Group, they put that schnoz on the convertible first, liked it so much, they put it on the 4 Series, and then the M3. The rest of the transition from coupe to convertible, I expected it to be not as sharp, which it is. And then the thing I didn't expect needs a bit more stopping power, which brings us to the wish list. And here it's really not just this car, it's more BMW Group overall. I love that we're doing 48-volt mild hybrid systems, but this, it needs a bit more functionality. I'm thinking more assist, perhaps some EV-only driving range. That would work incredibly well with an all-seasons convertible, which this thing can be with all-wheel drive. And this is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And being that someone at BMW was listening when I bitched and moaned about, yeah, I want only rear-wheel drive, well, I'm gonna bitch and moan again. How about rear drive convertible with a manual transmission? Till I see you guys in the next episode, bis später.